says we're going live now. Okay, welcome everybody to this week's session on ZedAxis TV with the emotional intelligence expert, Dr. Rosemary McCallum. And these interviews will be shared on the YouTube channel ZedAxis TV. So we will be providing a link, but when you do go over there, do hit the subscribe button and make sure that you are notified as we bring you more interviews on really how to be a better leader, how to be more effective in your business and your life. So today with Dr. Rosemary McCallum, Rosemary has a PhD in metaphysics, and we're going to be exploring with her the ins and outs of emotional intelligence, especially in the workplace, looking at what are CEOs looking for, what are managers looking for, and what are the implications of really bringing our whole selves into the workplace. So Rosemary, I'm really curious. Firstly, welcome.
Thank you so much, Leah, and excited to share with your audience.
Fantastic. And so emotional intelligence. So let's start with, we've got about 30 minutes to explore the view of the world through your eyes as someone who has lived and breathed this topic. But, you know, tell me a little bit about your background and a PhD in metaphysics.
Well, basically my background in metaphysics, I start off with the behavioural science. That was my first journey, and actually mainly to understand me. Why the heck did I think the way I did? So that's why I went and did a behavioural science counselling course. And I came out of that and I'm sort of like, yeah, I've got lots of emotion, but it still hasn't given me an answer. And I was reading a biography on Einstein, and it said on his deathbed that he said that there is only one true science and all other sciences emanate from it, and that was metaphysics. And I just went, okay, sounds good, whatever metaphysics is. So I looked it up, and it's a philosophy basically on how the mind works and creates your reality, which is Einstein's theory of relativity. And so that
I love Einstein, by the way.
Oh, so do I. He's very interesting as that goes. If we could have an autistic class, he would have been totally high functioning autistic, which I love about him, you know. And so his whole world was about, like Jung, was the dream state is where we envision things and where reality comes into focus. He says, we are dreaming it long before it comes into our life. So that's what started me off on metaphysics. A lot of people think, oh, metaphysics woo-woo, but it's got nothing to do with woo-woo. It's got to how am I creating my reality? And my reality is created through feeling first and thought that follows from the feeling. And that was what headed me off to look at where is emotional intelligence today. You'll often read a lot about the 5 traits of emotional intelligence, which is self-regulation. But that can also be a learned skill, which is difficult to keep applying in moments of stress. But what the skill is in what I call foundational emotional intelligence, is what is the feeling I am bringing to what I'm going to do, and how will I feel when I have finished, despite the outcome.
Oh.
And I told you a bit earlier that I got my first test in that in writing my thesis.
Yeah, tell me, what was your research question?
My research question was on life coaching to build people. And I was looking at this exploring emotional intelligence because it just didn't feel right enough for me after hearing what Einstein had to say, looking how Jung looked at the archetypal patterns and all the rest of it. So I spent ages writing this thesis of 6,000 words, you know, and somehow I lost it in the computer.
Oh my goodness.
So I thought, not a problem.
How many years of work was that, Rosemary?
That was nearly 4 years worth of work. So, and I had saved it. I'd saved it all along. It wasn't that I was that bad on the computer that I hadn't saved it. So I thought, I'll get my trusty tech guy over who knows everything, because I'm a little technically challenged. And first of all, my husband said, let me do it. And I said, no, don't. No, please don't. Because
wise move.
on the same level, I don't need you to fix this. And so over comes my tech guy, and he's very chilled, and he's like, interesting. I go, really? And he goes, I don't know, genius, how you managed to do this. It's in there, and I have no idea how to get it out. I said, great. And I said, what's the answer? He said, start again. I said, excuse me, I think I'll just go and have an emotional moment and scream in the backyard. Then I'll come in and we'll start again. So I had to go, how am I going to feel about this?
Yeah, I bet that tested every fiber in your body.
I could feel that jaw tension, that gnashing of teeth.
Are you with us, Rosemary?
Yes, yeah, I'm here this end. Can you hear me, Leah?
Okay.
Good?
Yes, you just froze. You just froze for a moment.
That's because we live in the country, unfortunately.
That's all right. We'll push through as best we can.
Yeah. So look, I clenched the teeth and I went, you know what? So what? Let's do it again. And fortunately, I handwrite everything, so I had a fairly good thing guidepost to go by. But it always comes better second time round because you've had that time of contemplation. And the report back was that was revolutionary, what you have written. So
really?
I was really impressed with that it was. Because, there is always a deeper question under every question. And that's what I love about life. Is that
so what was the specific thing that really stood out for your assessors then? Revolutionary is a big word for academics to apply.
Yes, was on the fact to move from the cognitive expression of emotional intelligence to the more pathos coming from heart. How am I going to feel? And then putting your ethics behind that feeling. Was the crux of what I told them. And I said, because in reason.
How are you defining ethics, Rosemary?
Ethics is are you living true to your values by expressing this feeling?
Wow, okay.
So you can feel I'm going to feel really competitive in what I'm doing, and you can choose to bring up that energy. That's just an emotion, but I'm not a competitive person. That doesn't work for me. For me, I'm a
right. So that's not authentic for you. It's not aligned. It's not ethically aligned. See, I actually prefer the word ethic to authentic. Authentic is bandied around, and what on earth does that even mean? But ethical.
Authentically bad. So no, ethical. It's not my ethics to be competition, and that's not against anyone who has. It's just me. Yeah. I love the challenge, and the only person I'm ever challenging is myself. And that's all about everything we do. Everything we do is done to meet an emotional need, to feel something. That's that. Once people understand, choose the feeling that you want. You are not at the mercy of your feelings. You have to have the power to choose what you're going to feel, and when you start to do that, if I choose, my value is challenge, how am I going to feel about that? I'm excited and I'm curious about what's going to come from that. That then lifts me out of, all right, I've made a mistake. So what? I'm curious what else I could do to change that. That relieves all tension out of the body, and it allows people to think future perfect and bring the future to themselves by you going out there and you're seeing a picture like Einstein saw himself riding the light beam. And that's how he did his theory of relativity. And then he brought that back in and went, wow, that's really curious. What do I need to do now to find how to bring that to here? I've got to feel like I am the light being.
So you're really associating into that vision, like viscerally and wholly. You're putting your heart and soul into what it is you're seeing for yourself. And if you can't do that, is that vision really right for you, or is that goal really right for you?
That's exactly it. I love Aristotle's theory of persuasion, which is pathos, logos, ethos, which means feel it, think it, do it. You know, and not for other people, but for yourself.
What's the last one? So pathos,
logos, ethos, which is ethics.
Ethos.
Yeah, ethos.
Okay, so act in a manner that is ethical with you.
Yes, that you feel is ethical. You know, and when I and this is the crux of my work. This is people, you know, when I work with people who are in depression, it's because they're not feeling their way forward. They're stuck in a certainty of behavior and a certainty of thinking. The only way out is to feel differently, not think differently, feel differently. So when I go to the workplace, people are people. And this is what I love about what I do. It doesn't matter about what you're doing. Who is the person in the doing? That's what I take to the workplace.
And how are you being received by CEOs when you come in with a feeling, you know, a feelings approach?
Well, you know, it's called soft skills in, you know, I mean, seriously, soft skills in business. And when I say I actually challenge them and I say, why do you think that's soft? The hardest thing you'll ever do is to be powerful enough to choose what feeling you're going to have. So why do you think that's soft? And they go, oh, well, explain that to me. And I said, well, if you're giving information to people and they're feeling I don't understand you, but I'm too frightened to tell you that, how good is that information being passed down? Oh. And I said, you know, the premise of business is people. People equal productivity equals profit. When we can turn our face on that we have to align a person's heart with what they do along with their mind, because heart math has shown us, heart thinks first, mind just responds. So if the heart feels not good enough, if the heart feels I don't understand, I don't belong, all of this, it doesn't matter how clear your communication is, they're not hearing you. And that's what I'm trying to get them to understand, that, you know, it's about seeing the person behind the title and addressing the person and allowing them the space to say where I don't know.
I mean, because when you think about it, like, and your work, this is now 3 decades ago where you completed your PhD, and emotional intelligence really came to life in the business world with Daniel Goleman's book, right? Which I think was what, 25 years ago.
Yeah.
So, you know, and it's often been said that book gave executives the permission to actually start feeling and to start looking at the whole person and not just the person and the normal business KPIs, goals, outcomes, things that typically are what, you know, businesses and leaders are rewarded for. And, you know, and this is where, you know, one of the questions that, you know, I posed is, you know, what is the number one skill that CEOs are looking for, right? And again, it depends on which research you look at, and you know what the focus is there, but certainly leadership comes out as you know, is what CEOs are looking for. And again, this is another skills area that has been trained and coached for, you know, for 30, 40, 50 years now. How can we still be looking for good leadership? How can we still be looking for better emotional intelligence? So I'm curious, from your perspective, what is the number one skill that you are seeing from your research that CEOs are looking for?
Well, you know, sometimes everything is so surface, and this is why every question asks, every question reveals a deeper question. So they've gone down the right track of cognitive emotional intelligence. Oh, I've got to hold my temper in, you know. Oh, I've got to do this and all the those 5 traits. Yes, they are important. They're very important. But if a person doesn't feel a leader inside, those 5 traits come across as aggressive. And that's where, you know, in my research, I joined the Gallup group because I love their research. They are the ultimate researchers. And they found that only 2 in every 10 managers should even be a manager. And then another group have found 54% of managers don't know how to be a manager, mainly because they are actually promoted on their skills, which is a really great skill set, but they're not really given enough training in people building. A great manager should be focused on people building and letting the people are hired because they've got the skills to do things. So your team has the skill, but if you're not building the people and giving them the autonomy and allowing them to make a mistake and allowing them to say, I don't know, can we work together in a collaborative thing to create an outcome, then no one's going anywhere. And people are disengaging. Look, my first husband, he was the ultimate computer geek. Ultimate. He was the first computer analyst in Australia. He even spoke in code. I didn't know what he was talking about half the time. And highly autistic, high-functioning savant. And like a John Nash, you put him in a corner, leave him alone. But no, he knows everything. We're going to make him a manager. He had the people skills of a gnat. And he was so distressed by this that he actually left because he couldn't cope with the pressure. He was good at what he did, but he couldn't build other people, you know, and this is often what they're not looking at. Sometimes the person with the least skill is a much better manager because they're great at giving permission to people with the skill to do the task at hand, because they've got the emotional intelligence to say, I don't have to know everything. This person knows better than me how to do this. I'm going to trust that this person will have the answer, and then between us, we will present it. And they give that kudos to the person that's done it. That's emotional intelligence.
It is, it certainly is, but it seems that what gets rewarded is still the leader that gets the financial results, right? In public companies, I mean, and you know, and this is where the task-oriented focus versus people-oriented, the holy grail, right, is to have both. But and someone who is task-based, you know, because emotional intelligence, as you've said so clearly too, that they can be learned skills. People skills can be learned. And it all takes time and it takes investment.
It takes time and investment, and somebody, you can learn something. You can learn something, but then when there isn't that feeling behind it, people aren't stupid. They pick it up. They, you know, it's like a smiling enemy. They pick it up.
Oh yeah, like I can remember, you know, in my time in corporate, where you would always sense when the compliment from the manager was really superficial or whether it was real.
Yeah.
You know, and everybody else could do, and it was almost worse when they were saying something that was not real. And that it was lip service, and or that they wanted to show their boss that they were acknowledging their people, you know. And there's all this politics and game playing that goes in. So, where does, like, how honest or how much can you say of exactly how you think versus say what you expect others need to hear? Because that has been the culture, right? That a certain persona and a gravitas that a leader or a manager has to have in order for other people to follow their instruction. Now, that's very different from a leader or a manager who empowers their people to want to follow instruction and to do it with joy and to want to be engaged. So I think this is the piece you're speaking to, isn't it, Rosemary? To how do we motivate people so they feel inspired to perform at their best, so they feel inspired to perform and achieve the company goals?
One of the things I often do, because, look, you can come back just to the basic personalities without taking those very complex personality tests that you can do out there. The basic personality tests of choleric, sanguine, phlegmatic, and melancholy. And
Florence Littauer, that was the very first.
Yeah, which is Aristotle's test. And
right?
Yes, it is. It's come from Aristotle. And but the whole point of it is understanding a manager often only speaks to his personality or her personality, because cholerics want to know what. I'm a what person. Don't give me whole lots of fluff around it. Just tell me, what are we doing here? They want to know what. Sanguines want to know who's doing what. Melancholies
and who's in the party,
and who's in the party, and what will they be wearing? And they make the best salespeople because they're the best at engaging with people. The melancholy wants to know why, and the phlegmatic wants to know how. So if you're talking about what to a phlegmatic, and they're sitting going, how do I do that? You haven't come from a point of empathy. You haven't go, this is what I want done, and I think you're the best person because I know if you do it this way, that's how we'll get the best result. That's emotional intelligence, is to get inside the people's shoes.
You make it sound so simple, Rosemary. That was a beautiful, definitive kind of what, and in business terms that we all understand, the what, why, who, and how.
Yeah. And it is because we get caught in the ever evolving grind of productivity, profit. Well, the world's come crashing down now. And people have been working from home, or some people aren't working at all. They're going to be reevaluating. Do I want to go back into a model that uses me as a human resource? That does my head in. A human resource. Burn them up, throw them away. They're people. And they're people who hurt. And they're people who are scared, and they're people who want to express who they are and want to achieve. And, millennial studies show they want purpose and meaning. They don't just want a job, they want purpose and meaning. I've got one girl who's top headhunted EA, changed jobs 5 times, gone for a lesser pay because she had purpose and meaning in the job. It's a brave new world out there. And, CEOs, if you're listening, at your peril, don't look at the unseen power that emotions have in your business, because they are way more powerful than logic. They will override logic every single time. And
so what would be your advice for a leader or a manager who is really wanting to improve the performance and the engagement in their teams? What could they do right now? How can they, what would be your recommendation?
My recommendation is, and yes, if it's a manager, difficult because they don't have the power to bring people in, but is to sit down and have that conversation with the decision makers in the business. And if we're talking an SME, say in manufacturing, the person became a business owner because they were skilled at what they did. So they've gone out and done that. But none of them, many of them haven't even done a business course, which causes a problem. But most of them had never thought about the people. They've thought about how they get to the top. And, you know, it's exhausting driving people, totally exhausting. So what they could do is sit down and have a conversation with me, how I can make it better, how I can help them to come in with not some woo-woo soft skills, but empowering people to be able to move forward. Some people want all the power for themselves. And unfortunately, that will pan out in time because people will leave. But when a person can say, you know, I'm not an island in business, I need staff, I need people, even if you're subcontracting, I still need to be able to relate to people.
So how do you work with those managers and CEOs in those organizations? Do you come in as a consultant?
Yes, come in as a consultant. Look, the very first thing I would do is, what are your strengths? Oh, well, do you know your strengths? And I would get them to do the Gallup strengths. And I said, before we look at anything, let's look at your blind side. Where are you doing that? Because, you know, this may be a strength, but it's only a talent until you build it into a strength. When it's on a blind side, it's actually detrimental and it's causing problems.
So what would be the number one problem that people call you in for so far?
A disengagement. Always. Disengagement is the number one thing. Why aren't my people producing?
And what's the cost of disengagement?
The cost of disengagement is that in Australia today, only 34% of people are actively engaged in the workforce. Now, you're paying 66% of people to come in and sit there and cost your productivity, probably on the internet looking for a new job.
Wow. I mean, look, and there is a lot of research into this, and similarly with the younger folk really searching for that meaning and purpose in their roles, in their companies, and corporate social responsibility and all of that. And there is a sea of consultants out there, and so what would be your message as to why they would choose you over other consultants that have got, you know, different, you know, various toolkits of emotional intelligence and consulting work? What's your secret deliverable?
My secret thing is teaching people to bring meaning and purpose to what they do. I'll give you an example. I had a client who was a production manager for a big company. They produced air conditioners and humidity cribs. And he was in his 40s, he'd hit the 40 zone. And he said, oh, I think I need a new direction in life. I feel purposeless. I said, why do you feel that? And he said, well, I go to work and I just do this and I push buttons. What's the point of that? I said, well, what would happen if that business wasn't, if you weren't there and what you pushed broke down that day? Oh, they'd get someone else. I said, no, they haven't got anyone else. Oh, well, the plant would stop. I said, okay, so what would happen then? And he goes, well, they'd have to find someone. I said, yeah, okay, but what would happen to the people? Oh, well, they'd be stood down. I said, what would happen to the humidity crib that was needed to save a baby's life? The baby would die. I said, I think that's a really good purpose why you go to work, because you save people's lives. He said, I never thought of it that way. He went on to be CEO of the company.
Yes, what will this make possible for you?
Yes.
Right. And what will it make possible for a CEO or an organization if each of their people were as connected to the ultimate deliverable of the company, like the humidity crib, with the piece of work that they do? Because that's the huge gap too, isn't it? That people they don't see how their piece of the pie fits in to the end result, and so there's that disconnect of their sense of what their part is as the contribution to the greater good.
And that's it. And I love what Steve Jobs did. Someone took a video of him doing this, and it's very difficult to find it anyway. But I got to see it at a seminar, and he'd just taken back over Apple after getting ousted and gone back in. And they played it against the Microsoft guy who'd just been elected as CEO, came in and said, what, I'm gonna. And Steve came in, and there's a single stool there. He'd probably been humbled a bit by that. There's a single stool, and he sat down and he just looked at them and he said, well, guys, we're in a pickle. What are we going to do together? He said, I'm listening. That's a CEO. That's someone who says, I don't have to have all the answers, but I have got a team here that if we work together, we can create an answer. We can figure it out together. We can figure it out together. People are tribal. They want a sense of belonging. Everybody's talking about the mental issues of the isolation from the workplace. My bent on that as an expert in depression is that they've always been isolated. This is just magnifying it. Yes. You know, and what we're isolated from falls into the codependencies of other people making us feel good, when it's our responsibility to make us feel good, but no one's ever taught us that. So that's that personal empowerment, the impact of that on being able to engage more fully and honestly, and to be able to speak what's really on your mind. You need to have that inner sense of empowerment or confidence, and isn't that the basis of resilience? That right? Which is resilience. I don't like bouncing back. Where are you bouncing back to? What about resilience moves you forward? These are much better.
I love that. And that is such a great message to end on, Rosemary, because we've got a couple of minutes now just to sort of wrap up, and I'd love to go deeper again, and so we can do that at another time. But certainly from what I've gleaned of you today is that this is the emotional aspects of emotional intelligence, resilience, of the value of personal connection to our values in the workplace is an absolute must-have to enable that next level of performance and engagement in people that every CEO is looking for. So where can they find you? Have you got something that you'd like to offer the audience, please?
Look, I do have a free download on my website, which is Rosemary McCallum. I'll put it in.
We'll put it in a link up to that. Yeah. And what's the download?
And you don't have to go searching for it. It's about knocking your goals out of the park each and every time. And it's specifically for managers on how to start to get some emotional intelligence, but we all need it. I need it. There's days when I'm not feeling what I need to be feeling, and I can lose the plot. You know, we're human. We're human. But my basic premise is it's a 3-step formula. You choose your emotional needs, and you'll see what your emotional needs are by what you're hoping other people will give you. Choose your emotional needs. Choose values that resonate with you. Values are really tricky because people often take on the values of society, religion, education, all of those. But what are your values? Choose 3 values. Only ever work with 3 values. Life's a whole lot easier if you do that. 3 values. And the values is how you're going to action. So if I need acceptance, I'm going to use the value of knowledge. Okay? And I know that if I bring acceptance to what I do, I'm going to bring that. I'm going to accept everything I do. I'm taking a challenge to do the best I can. That's my acceptance being measured. Then I use a little guiding principle, a policy and procedure about how I'm going to use that challenge. And that possibly, and I give some examples of that. There's a download in there that gives you examples of that. Is that so? One of my things for challenge is that every day I'm going to push myself that little bit further, because there is joy in uncertainty.
Joy in uncertainty. Oh, I'm going to get curious about that one.
Good.
Joy in.
Everybody's seeking certainty. That's a pathway to depression. So that's my 3-step formula.
Say it again. So choose
an emotional need.
Yep.
It's all in that download.
Good.
And there's some click-throughs on how to choose your emotional needs and how to do your values. Choose an emotional need, choose a value, how you will action that need, and have a guiding principle about how you're doing it. That helps your poor old brain have a neural pathway.
Yes, and then to get into action about it, because as we know, change, transformation takes through action. We can't go around just collecting knowledge and not doing anything differently.
I tell my students, I tell you, knowledge is knowing left on the ledge. I said, it's worth nothing until you action it, and your brain cannot change until you've had an experience. So if you think about it and don't action it, you will never create a new neural net.
On that note, Rosemary, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed our conversation today, and I will be downloading that goals, how to kick your goals out of the park every time. And we'll definitely put your links in the post, and I look forward to connecting with you again. Thanks so much for your time.
Linda. And thanks, guys, for listening. Go out and feel your way forward.
Thank you so much.